And I was just playing back what former President Mahama said. But before that, let me come back to Doc briefly. I realized that you just did an article on free SHS.
Yes,
I know we're yet to publish the article, but essentially, what's your opinion on it? Because are you talking about source of funding? You're talking about restructuring?
Yes, I'm talking more about source of funding and quality of it. Because it's something that has come to stay. And we've been relying on other sources that are not very formal, that are not very sustainable, because with the major source, which 90% of it came from oil proceeds, and that fluctuates. That's not a sustainable one. In this article, I argue that we need to relook at VAT. Right, because VAT has a broader base. Right, unlike the nuisance tax of e-levy and among Momo tax and what have you, which are considered nuisance taxes and regressive. If you look at it within the component, like for instance, Ghana as a country, our standard VAT rate is 15%. Now, arguments may be made, or arguments will be made to the effect that we have a 2.5 GET fund and a 2.5 NHIS levy, and then a 1% or 1.5% COVID levy. Now, if you look at it in the strictest sense of taxation or VAT, standard tax, that of the GET fund, that of the health insurance levy, and that of the COVID levy is deemed as a sales tax. It's not really a standard VAT measure. So to go strictly by what the VAT measures are, I would say we have 15%. But conservatively, let's say for argument's sake, we want to lump all of it together. We're still talking about 21% here, which when you compare to other European standards is still low. Because a European average stands at 20 to 27%. Right, and this goes on to provide certain social amenities, like healthcare, when you see in the Scandinavians and among other countries within the EU. Right, so if we are able to, have our competitions right, if we're able to standardize this and get a good VAT rate, which is not going to focus and affect an informal sector like Momo is doing and having a regressive measure, but would have a direct stream of funding, I think it'll go a long way. Because when I crunch the numbers, we're talking about 2.8 billion probably to look after free SHS. And if you crunch these numbers, they are almost close to that. And that tells you that that would be a more sustainable measure. This is a suggestion I'm making. Through the article is an argument I'm making. I'm not saying it's cast in stone.
I understand the funding point.
Yes.
But if you're spending 2.8 billion, I'm thinking that you're talking about the annual expenditure on free SHS alone. Then should the very first course of action not to be to look at that expenditure? Rather than finding
no, but the point is, where is it coming from? Can you pause it at this point in full flight? You may not be able to do that as a government, right? Given that it's a key, essential social intervention that was rushed through implementation. Because, if they had listened to us, we started with a gradualist approach to this. I know at some point in time we probably want to talk about means testing and among other issues. But as it stands now in its full scale, you just can't get in and rapture it. It has to be a gradual process, which is why President Mahama and Professor Nana Jino Pokuajima are saying within their first 120 days, they're going to be a stakeholder dialogue on this. And this is where we're going to dot the I's, cross the T's, make the suggestions. You have teacher unions, you have NAGRAT, you have NAT, among other civil society organizations within the educational space, all coming to see how we can. We're not saying it's a good thing. We're not running away from it. Right. We have held the high flags of free education a very long time ago. Our argument was just that it ought to be gradual. Now it's been implemented willy-nilly. It is existing, but it's not the best. Numeracy, literacy, quality of it is nothing to write home about. How are we competing with international standards? These are things we need to talk about. The north-south divide, the rural-urban divide. How are all of these things catered for? You get me? And this is what the NDC or the NDC government in the offing come 7th January 2025 is trying to look at. And I'm coming from a perspective of my expertise and trying to say, okay, well, how are we going to get sustainable funding rubrics to this? And this is where I made the suggestion of VAT and as we eliminate the nuisance taxes, we can really have a broader base that does not focus on a very narrow sense that has greater impact on a particular demographic. Which are the downtrodden.
Interesting proposal, but me, I know your problems with the VAT currently as it's constituted. You don't only consult, you run business yourself. What do you make of his proposal, first of all? that perhaps we should look at the source of funding, find something sustainable, whilst we try to look at the process of reforming and reviewing it?
Well, certainly we must look for a sustainable funding for this program. And yes, VAT is something you can look at. But the condition is not right. And also, VAT is competing not just in terms of taxes and all that, it's also competing in terms of margins, in terms of running business. VAT as it's structured today, yes, at 21.9. You should also look at what the system would accept, and it will not break the system down. Currently, the VAT being run now, it is seen excessive, right? The VAT is also worked on the levies, which means it is not the 15% we are talking about. It is higher than the 15%.
Okay.
Right. And also, I believe that this economy, if you push it as it stands now, you would necessarily push up inflation.
Okay.
Which we are trying to bring down.
Okay.
Right. Yes, there may be other things we would have to do in the near future, like making sure that food production is upped and all that. But for now, I don't think our businesses will accept any increment in VAT.
Okay.
For me, yes, I think that there is a lot to be done in terms of improving the VAT collection.
Okay.
And that is actually making sure that the system run effectively. If you look at the import duties that we have, and you gross it up by the mid rate between 5, 10, and 20, you will realize that even at the port we should have collected more VAT.
Okay.
Right. Now, this same figure, if you put even a margin of 20% on it and work VAT, then you should, at the secondary level, have collected more VAT than we are doing. We are doing somewhere around 22, 25 billion in terms of VAT per annum, when we could do 50 billion.
Okay.
So the issue is not about the rate. Consistently, we have worked on the rate. Consistently, we have improved the rate. Yet, we have not improved collection.
Okay.
Right. So, for me, I will not look at increasing the rate because we are not at the European standard, and that is a fact. Our system, the bottlenecks in our system, does not just allow us to go to the level of the European standard or what the US will charge and all that. We should look at those we are competing with in terms of our peers within the region, and you will realize that we are quite high, but we are not collecting enough.
Okay.
The issue is that we should take out some of these challenges we have in the system. If you remember, we have had this discussion where I said that the way to go is e-invoicing, not the e-VAT that they actually put up. And that could bring in a lot more for us. That means you are monitoring what comes in, then the onward recoveries are done properly and all that. That should be the guide, right? That should be the guide. For a nation, we will always have issues with revenue, and if you look at our history with this economy, it is only when we have problems, we have challenges on our hands, then we think of taxes.
Okay.
You know, since time immemorial, when we started the foundation of this economy, post-independence, we have always run into the ditch, and then we look back and say, what task can we impose on the people we have not been forward-looking in that direction to say that, look, in the near future, we may have these challenges. And these challenges comes up almost 6 to 8 years consistently. And so this is something we should have been looking at, and we could pretend, we could run ahead and see that, look, we will have challenges, and actually profess solutions to those challenges before we hit. We don't hit it and get back and say, where do we find money? That is always going to be a decision coming from your stomach and not your head.
I see. Very interesting. Anything?
I mean, you see, even the introduction of VAT in itself to our economy was rejected and was met with fierce resistance.
Okay.
But today, that is the pinnacle. That's the fulcrum of our economy. So you look at VAT, even there's a cost element to collecting taxes, right? And that in and of itself is problematic. So when we talk about rates or increasing VAT, there's an existent and a burdensome system of nuisance taxes. Now, in my arguments, I'm talking about the elimination of these nuisance taxes that are targeted at the wrong people.
Okay.
But you look at these elements of the components of what I call VAT. I'm even looking at making it go directly to the GET fund that is meant for free SHS.
Okay.
Now, if you knock out these nuisance taxes, which are already problematic, right, incorporate them with a right computational measure that now gives you a broader base, right, that goes to people with greater purchasing power. I think explaining it and justifying it to a social measure is what is more effective than any other thing. Because, as I said, the inception of even VAT in itself was resisted. Kumi Preko was a mark of VAT. But today, the country's economy is hinged on VAT.
I see. Well, that's just my...
you get it.
Well, I disagree. The fact that it was rejected from the beginning doesn't make it right today to increase the rates. I am against it because of what businesses are suffering. And like he said...
So it's a basic issue of timing.
Exactly.
Where businesses
the timing is wrong.
So maybe I'll share the article with you.
Yeah.
You can get a full detail.
Now, to say that improved purchasing power, which comes first? You understand? Where we are now, and what he has said has been implemented already by this current government. When they took over, they sought to increase VAT.
No, I made that correction.
From 12 to 15.
Yeah, I made that correction.
And yet, they have not been successful.
I made the correction that you look at things like NHIL and the GET fund, among other issues. They are sales tax in and of itself because there's no input-output as far as the standardization of VAT is concerned. So you see a certain level of dysfunctionality even within the computation of VAT. So I'm calling for a robust measure of it and then having the right rates implemented, aimed at actually, because why do we go for taxation? Right. I'm not saying that, look, this is cast in stone, let's go for it. This is something we can explore.
Okay. Thank you. Let's leave it then. But let me first start with, because the basic question that you put forward at this time is where you are. If you're going to take over this economy, the first question you have to answer for yourself is where this economy is at. And Prof, I'll come to you, but let me start with me, because me actually does a lot of things when it comes to this economy. When that question is asked, what would you say? What's the state of the Ghanaian economy?
Well, it's in a bad state.
Okay.
Right. Not to mix words. It's in a bad state. The latest IMF report is saying that, well, it is fragile. That's how they described it. But I'm going to say that it's in a very bad state. It is not pleasant taking over such a portfolio and trying to work things around. Look, in terms of the budget deficit, it's still very high, too high.
Okay.
We still have financing issues. The budget is only not gone out of work because I would say that the some 9 billion that has to be paid have not been paid. Yet in terms of the local servicing of that, we are going beyond targets.
Okay.
Now, we are underperforming in terms of all the consumption taxes, excise tax, the GET fund, NHIL, VAT, and all that. We are underperforming. Personal income tax and all that. If you look at the first half report, the fiscal data, it shows that we are underperforming. We are having a lot of challenges also managing inflation at the same time, and leading in that is food prices, which we will have to do something about immediately if we want to tackle inflation. We do not have enough reserves. Our reserves are quite down. It's not something that you would want for such an economy, So look, whichever way you look at it, wherever you look at, we have very challenging issues facing us in all directions. So if you asked me where is this economy, I would say it's in a bad state. Is it something we can do something about? Yes, we can do something about. It is how we do it.
You can do something about it, but the approach, how you do it.
The approach. Because, you see, some of the recent views I've heard sounds so much like 2017, some of the views that others shared.
Okay.
Yes, nuisance taxes. Let's be careful when we describe these taxes as nuisance taxes, and we are in a hurry to just take them off and introduce new taxes in some form, when in fact the base of the economy is not stimulated in any way to grind efficiently.
Okay.
I still think, and in recent time I had a meeting and I said, look, I have an issue with how this country thinks when it comes to tax. Even our courts thinks that tax is not based on anything, it is based on an imposition. No, tax is not based on an imposition. Tax is a function of accounting. And therefore you must get that right before you can get your taxes right.
Now explain that. When you say tax is a function of accounting.
Yes.
When you say get it right, what are we supposed to get right?
Look, we are in a country that I would say that our accounting as it stands now is very poor. As a nation, how we account is quite poor.
Okay.
When I mean how we account, our recognition, measurement of financial data and everything is a bit suspect.
Okay.
And it is all around, from government to the private sector to everywhere. We're talking about the public sector, everywhere. It is quite poor.
Okay.
Right. Now, to think about it, that I would have to recognize something as a revenue for you to impose a tax on it. Right? And then the recognition is not done right. It means whatever you would come after is not right. The base is not correct.
Okay.
We will fail at it. Right? I import goods, and then the costing of it is wrong. What it means is that you, the taxing officer, you in charge of planning and all that, will also get it wrong in taking decisions. And therefore we will end up taking decisions we believe are based on right information, but actually we are dealing with wrong information.
Okay.
So we must first and foremost understand and come to the acceptance that, look, we will need to have our accounting right in this country. Then we can look at taxing and taxing well. Because, you see, all these decisions to tax this and not to tax this is based on the information available to us.
Okay.
If that information is impaired by any form of activities, and that's human as we are, then we could land up taking the wrong decision when it comes to tax. And that is where we have to be careful.
I'll come back to you, because when you talk about nuisance taxes, majority of what the new government intends to get rid of is something that you've been against, e-levy, among others. But, Prof, first, that question of where are we?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, I always say you can't run an economy by propaganda. It will expose you, to borrow Dr. Palmier's own words.
Yeah.
And when they say statistics like a lady in bikini, it's just as economists as well. So, for example, I remember when Ken Oforiatta, I don't know which communications consultants gave him that terminology of we've turned a corner. Right. I made something very profound on one of your sister stations, I think that was on Joy, that Ken was wrong in the sense that he wanted to sort of allay the fears of stakeholders within the economy to say we've turned a corner when the IMF money hit kitty, or the government's kitty.
Okay.
What rather happened is that we're an overheated economy. And when you have an overheated economy, it ought to cool off before you can even turn a corner. We hadn't cooled off. We are even yet to cool off. So how do you turn a corner? But then again, politics, we made him had a field day, and today here we are. Now, for me, as one that was part of this campaign, campaigning around left, right, center, and all around the country, in my sober moments, what I thought of was always, if we won this election, how are we going to run the economy?
If you won the elections,
how we're to run the economy, because of what we're going to inherit and what we'll take over.
Okay.
Mind you, the economy is dysfunctional. It's just not overheated. The reality of this economy will begin to show, right, in the next probably 3 years into this administration, and that will be near an election year. And if measures are not taken now, we'll be firefighting. Now, what's going to happen is that, look, we just emerged from a domestic exchange program.
Okay.
The ravages of that is staring at us in the face. Okay? There's even no sustainable measure of service in that.
Okay.
We are engaged with external debt payments, internal debt payments. And this all has consequences and impacts on the economy.
Okay.
There was reckless borrowing, not just at friendly rates or interest rates. We are talking about rates that were way beyond the markets.
Okay.
Right. We're like, okay, we're having Eurobond, everything we jumped on. We went onto the capital markets. Government, sovereign nations hardly do that. You have to be prudent in what you go for. Now, the fundamental thing is, we went for all this borrowing spree on the capital market at very astronomical high rates. We return with these monies, and there's no single investment we can point to say that these monies were invested in so and so that are going to bring so and so back into the economy. Let's say we had built a factory somewhere that it was probably repaying itself and bringing something and providing employment. There's absolutely nothing to show for. Right? We're inheriting an economy where savings culture and investment culture has dissipated, if not disappeared, thanks to haircuts. Because now, I've said that, look, we need to even have a program, right, on trying to, put investor or savings culture back to people, because people are going to put monies in their homes. They don't trust the system anymore. This was an economy where he and I probably would buy treasury bills to pay fees of our kids. We're all shying away from treasury bills now. And there's another interesting perspective. Because of the kind of rates we had in our treasury bills and what have you, neighboring countries, you had financial institutions that came in to invest in these things. What are we going to do to them within the sub-region? Because they don't have that within their financial framework or environment or climate. Quite often than not, when you have an IMF facility, right, what it does is that it incentivizes spending in the system. It's like that I have a poultry farm or have that factory I need to expand. If the city is not doing very well, traditionally, we all know that these loans don't fail. They are boilerplates, tick box exercises, and you are dealing with a sovereign nation and a Bretton Woods institution. So when the money hit the government or the central bank's kitty, what will happen is that the city tends to, artificially do well. Then people who had forex investments to do now move in to do that. But this time around, what happened? 3 times we failed to access that money because we're not meeting the conditions. And because of how bad we had emerged out of the international capital markets. So what again happened is that there was a dysfunctional economy. Because people no longer trust that, okay, this IMF gig is coming in, so let me keep my dollars or let me keep my money. So no one is ready to spend in the economy. And if people are not spending in an economy, what happens to inflation? What happens to interest rates? And we're already in a climate where interest rates are very not friendly. So the tax ahead of any government taking over from this government is Herculean. And for me, this is why the stakeholder engagements on these, and which is why I see President Mahmud's 120-day top 10 priorities as very important. I think at the start of the economy, in his State of the Nation's address, he needs to give a true picture of what we are facing, what we have faced, and what we have inherited. I'm not saying that's an excuse, but the good people of Ghana need to have a full appreciation of what the economy is. We're talking taxation here. Talk to workers within banks. Back in the day, they looked up to their clothing allowances and what have you. It's now taxed at almost 25-30%. It does nothing to them anymore. So what it means is that these were middle class that were doing so well, that suddenly that has been taken off them. Why? Because we had big ticket items that were not sustainable, that were not bringing anything back to the economy. Look how much we spend on NAPCO. What has become of it? We still owe them, and a government coming in would have to pay them. And I always say in labor terms or within labor climates, the most dangerous thing to do is to stick a carrot to someone as employment and take it back.
And that was what they did
with NAPCO.
Okay.
So there's a lot more to be done as far as reshaping the economy is concerned. But then again, what I always say is when a new government takes office, there's a certain level of goodwill, locally and internationally. It's about how you run off with it. So if the NDC government gets the goodwill, it's about what they can do with it and how they can turn the economy around to have new investors coming in. Because, a change of government in of itself is confidence in the market. Because the market will view it as, okay, well, this is what happened. We're getting new guys. Let's see, they might have good propositions. Which is why, again, I think the top priority or the top 10 priority in the 120 days is key because this will send some signals. And I also say that the first set of appointments the president-elect makes will also tell whether there's going to be investor confidence in the economy. Because the market is watching all of these. Who has gravitas, who has appreciation of the economy, who has, XYZ, who has integrity, among other issues, which I have confidence that President Mahmud is more than capable of doing. So yes, there's the tax ahead is tough. If there's anything that gives me sleepless nights, that's what it is. It's really tough looking at it because the economy is not showing itself yet. Wait till, and the point is, election years have its own shenanigans in terms of, informal impacts, what have you. You probably need, the first quarter is still a bad one to start with. Second quarter, because even in the second quarter, because look, you're going to make appointments throughout the year. Put boards in place and among other issues. I don't know the speed of which this is going to go. But we're probably talking about to start to see the real essence of a reflection of a new government on the economy, apart from putting people in key places that may put confidence in the economy. We're talking beyond third quarter.
That's when you start to feel the impact.
The real impact of that. And at that, even you might probably need to have shrewd leaders in place to start to see that.
Shrewd?
Yes. Who understand their game and start to make the real policy formulation, start to make the real tangible investments in places that can yield. But President Mahmoud has done it before. He has a track record. We've all seen it in terms of roads infrastructure, in terms of airports around the country, among other issues. So let's see what he has in place. And which is why I think that there's something, the accelerated infrastructure program and export program and all of that, these are all key points. I mean, imagine we have 10 blue skies dotted around the country. What will happen? They are chopping pineapples into key supermarkets in Europe and America. They can even meet demand from mango farmers and pineapple farmers. So it tells you that there's a real potential within the agricultural sector. And again, what are we going to do? Rather than the overfixation on cocoa, a cash crop, which again we are struggling. I said that the dysfunctionality of the economy is reflected in all of these things happening. The cocoa, when we went to the international market for loans, the syndicated loan, we never cracked a sweat for it. They ran to us. But what happened this time around? The market didn't trust us. Is that going to stay? If that's going to stay, that's going to be problematic. Cote d'Ivoire has come up strong as a big competitor now. How are we trying to weather that storm? Given that we are now struggling on the international market to meet demands of a syndicated loan, nobody wants to touch us with a 6-foot pole. Again, that is problematic. Look at our credit ratings, among other issues. And again, for the first time, possibly in the history of this country, we're going to inherit an IMF program that has very limited impacts on the economy.
An IMF program?
Program that has very limited impacts on the economy. Why do I say this? Except keeping a watchman at the central bank, right, and policing our expenditure. Because of how we accessed it, it failed to have real tangible impact on the economy because we're failing to have it. So people do not invest. People held on to their forex, among other issues. These were the advantages IMF programs brought in. Okay. But this one, we accessed in a very dysfunctional manner. And the first time we're going to have very little impacts of it. When the NDC was living in 2016, it was at the end of an IMF program that MAHMUD got into, or President MAHMUD got into. And they got the real gains of it. But this time around, they are not giving any government inheriting from them the real gains of an IMF program.
There's nothing to be gained from this?
The only thing I'm saying would be gained from it is that we have a watchman at the central bank. But even with a watchman there, we posted losses. And a central bank that uses moral suasion as an instrument of functionality. You had the governor telling us that it was normal. It didn't have any impact because but why are you posting losses?
I see.
So it's going to be a baptism of fire. I think we need to brace ourselves.
Listening to you.
Yeah, we need to brace ourselves for it.
You move from one problem to another to another.
It's not going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah. Do you agree? Because what he said essentially, and the point you made, it's it's a profound point.
Yeah.
That the economy was overheated.
Yes.
It had not even cooled. They were saying they had 10 and you were saying that up till now, we're still yet to cool off.
Yeah, we're still yet to cool off.
Okay, before I come to you, what were they supposed to do to cool off the economy that they failed to do?
Stop the borrowing to start with.
Okay.
Which they never did. Right? And if you had borrowed, invest in tangible projects that have returns to have confidence back. Right? Try to engage our domestic and internal debt exchange program. You know what happened with the debt exchange program is that we've just deferred the problem. It's not as though we solved the problem. We've deferred it. And it's going to come back to bite. So these are things that they needed to look at.
So first,
big ticket items, as I said, like NAPCO, among other issues, ought to have to be relooked at. You had a whole agency on youth employment, what have you. You needed to see what tweaks you could make rather than recreating another. Having a capital expenditure, paying overheads, apart from which you were paying people. Because what I always say in this country is that we all need, like if you're employed, the problem is we have with labor markets that if you're employed, you need to work to pay yourself. Mm-hmm. And most often than not, we don't work to pay ourselves. So NAPCO was just a blank check.
That was going to bring nothing back.
Nothing back to this. And as I said, in labor terms, you don't dangle a carrot before them and take it off. Because a person earned a living for a year or two, you've taken it off. Not everyone is that disciplined to still keep going that way. Some may resort to social vices to survive. And again, that has invariable impacts on our economy. So there's a lot staring at us from a barrel of a gun. But as I said, I trust the pair of President John Dramani Mahama and Professor Nana Jeno Poko-Agyemang to do a good job at that.
Wow. That's Dr. SHARIF MAHMUD KHALID. There are many of the things that you say that he has said in a different way.
Yes.
In fact, you said all these things about, I recall you said the 2022 budget was going to fail because they had made a mistake with the approach, that they needed to just look at the fundamentals. We'll pay salary, we'll do all that. The rest, everybody has to justify why one expenditure or the other had to be made. He's saying virtually the same thing. We halt the borrowing, look at your expenditure, and they never did all this. So at this point, are we suggesting that the new government has to go back and do all these things that the old government failed to do?
And more.
And more?
Yes, and more. This is not coming easy to anyone. Trust me, no matter who you put there, it's not a pleasant thing at all. Look, yes, like he rightly said, the economy was overheated. And why would the economy be overheated? We have to find those whys. First and foremost, you accelerated expenditure so much compared to the acceleration of revenue. So certainly, but these Kenny's economic thinkers are like that. They are like, okay, more we spend, the more the economy grows, and then the spiral movement of financial goodies comes back to us, which is not true. It has been practiced over the years, and it has proven time and time again that it is not working. It has never worked. So what happened in the past is that, look, between 2015, 2016, the leadership of President Mahama had to take a decision to slow expenditure, reduce deficit, I think to around 6.9 billion. And this should have continued. But the approach of a new government in 2017 was that, look, we need to accelerate growth. And that is what caused the overheating. If you put together all the deficits that were financed from 2017 to 2019, it was clear that we were going to hit the flange in 2020, even without COVID. Okay. Then COVID came and gave us a new opportunity to further be reckless with borrowing. So that is the only positive I kind of get from how they manage COVID. They managed COVID so well to be able to borrow, when in 2020, without COVID, it would have been very difficult going onto the market and borrowing. Okay. It looks like all our creditors look the other way and say, look, we need to sustain the economy because of COVID. Let's go ahead and borrow. But you were borrowing at a higher rate. And all that is happening, has happened several times. And for me, that is my greatest issue. That is my greatest worry. My greatest worry is not about what we are about to do. It's about how we are so good repeating our mistakes from 57. In 1964, the IMF program we went under only deferred our debts. All we do is that, okay, today, if you look at our debt structure, we need to service and amortize, let's say, 50% of it within the shortest possible time. And then in the near future, within 6 to 12, it is 23, and then somewhere 25 kind of a thing. And so let's restructure it. Let's make the short term, the immediate term, let's make it 23, 25, and then 50% in the long round, somewhere 10 to 50. That's the same thing we have done with our debt structure currently. The same thing. Go and check the language. Everything is the same. Back then, the discussion with the Paris Club is the same as the discussions we are having with our creditors today. For me, this whole thing is a joke. And we need to get serious as a country. When you keep repeating the same mistakes in the same form and in the same shape, then it means we aren't thinking. We talk about the cocoa sector and all that. How we have managed and used the cocoa sector and proceeds and surplus over the years in our current dispensations has been the same. Nkrumah was falling on the cocoa surplus to finance budget. We are doing same. In a nice way, we are saying that the cocoa sector should start taking on certain projects. It is just like funding government. Oh, cocoa roads, cocoa street lights, cocoa this, cocoa that. We are doing the same thing. We have restricted ourselves to cocoa when there is palm. There are other cash crops that we could fall on and all that. We have not done so well managing this economy. And it's clearly that we don't understand the economy. And therefore, we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Yes, you borrow. But you borrow for what? To do what? What returns are you expecting? I have said this here a couple of times, that we go to Parliament, and all we are looking for is value for money. Nobody have ever gone to Parliament with a loan facility telling us how it's going to pay for itself, giving us the accounting of how this loan will pay for itself. Nobody does that in this country. You hear people bundling around value for... It looks like somebody sits somewhere, push something into our heads, and then we run around with it when we don't even understand what we are doing. The greatest challenge we face with our economy is having people who don't understand the issues running the show. That's it, period. And so it is not about policy. It is not about finding a new strategy. It is about knowing where we stand today, where we are coming from, understanding the Ghanaian economy. What will make it work are the basics. Fix your primary economy. That is extractive economy, where you are growing food, where you are getting your minerals from. Streamline the operations in there. Make sure that you are getting the best out of it. Make sure that the primary economy is linked directly and efficiently to the secondary economy, where you have your manufacturing and production base, that it can feed very well on this. And doing this will ensure that food inflation comes down. You are adding value. And then from that secondary, you can look at the tertiary economy, where you push a lot of what you are doing towards export. Because if you want to borrow, and borrow in hard currencies, then you must have enough exports, to rake in foreign exchange. our ratings are poor because what? We cannot actually generate enough foreign currencies. Even we are struggling with our own local currencies in terms of generating enough through revenue. And the main line is the taxation. Then you go out there borrowing hard currencies when you don't know how you are going to pay for those ones. When whatever you are investing those hard currencies in will not produce you hard currencies. We should have a debt doctrine in this country. That should tell us when to borrow, where to borrow, from where we should borrow, and what we should use that money for.
And how to pay back.
And how to pay back.
I see.
That must be a debt doctrine that we must look at. So yes, I hear this. We are going to put together a team to look at all these issues and all that. I am saying that first and foremost, let's tackle the necessary issues and let's tackle them well. Get a debt doctrine that works for this nation. Let's go back to our primary economy and start afresh from there and try and make sure that we are growing food and growing food at the cheapest rate in terms of pricing.
I see.
And then we can start looking at the tertiary and some of the flamboyant digitalization. And that's why I always say that you can't digitalize economy when there is nothing to digitalize. You have a void. Your primary economy is not working. The secondary economy is not working. The tertiary economy is not working. And then you want to go to the quaternary economy to say that, well, this side of it, I'm going to do it so well. It will not work. It will fail.
I mean, you see, he ended on a very good note, which I've always been on as far as digitalization is concerned.
Okay.
I've said that, look, the likes of Zoom as a corporation, right, became what it is today under COVID.
Okay.
So if this government has been pontification about their investments in the digitalization space, is there a single private entity or a state entity within the digital space that we can boast of as a byproduct of their digitalization under COVID or post-COVID? None whatsoever.
Okay.
So the development of apps that are non-functional beyond the days they are launched is not what we call digitalization. Low-hanging fruits, things that college students do elsewhere, we are here running amok with them. As vice presidents and heads of economic management team, and we are labeling them digitalization or products of digitalization. And we have the media in tow with the crowd clapping for some of these things. I think no.
But you agree with him when he says that you need to go back to the basics?
Well, you need to go back to the basics. But my point is, in this day and age, you just don't go to basics en masse, right? You have to have pockets of these things sparkling around. So whilst you go to the basics, you now see where you can connect that to. Because of, the sporadic growth in modernization, globalization, among other issues. But, something fundamental, as he talked about, a debt doctrine, among other issues. This ought to be part of our international relations policy as a country. Where do we trade? Where do we look to? Are we within the sub-region? Are we looking to the east? Are we looking to the west? As a nation, we need to have this, to say, okay, well, this is our international foreign policy. And within the international foreign policy is trade, is the economy, among other issues. We just don't fly blind or go for who brings what. I mean, look how we went to the capital market. Reckless. Who does that? What kind of a reactor had run data bank in that form or shape? No. So when they give you a country to run, you need to have some level of responsibility. You're having kinky parties over going to the bond market. Look at the commissions that were paid to their own companies. I mean, we don't want to get personal. But going to the bond market is not rocket science. It's not anything smart that even an economist or a finance minister needs to do. These are all boilerplates. They are tick box exercises. A prospectus, or to issue a prospectus for a bond market, is a template. You just tweak, change names and dates and what have you. To go in, and they were paying fat commissions out of all of these things. And we sat back and looked at them to run the economy down, run it to the ground. I always say when you are head of an economic management team or you are made finance minister or whatsoever, treat Ghana as Ghana PLC. It's a listed company with Ghanaians as shareholders. Run it in that form every day, knowing that you are answerable to your shareholders. You have an AGM to go to, among other issues. And when you do this, you'll be more responsible and prudent. I mean, let's even say they went reckless, went on a borrowing spree on the international bond market. Okay. At least have something tangible to show for it. The point we are missing is that what happened to the World Bank money that came under COVID-19? If you work it out, it's spread over a period of 30 years. Your grandchildren might still have to pay for it. That's where we are as a country.
I see. Well, I need to take my last break so that when we come back, perhaps the only thing we can address is the question of what the next government should not do. Not what they should do. What they should not do. But anyway, but before that, make this Christmas a new unforgettable with Furniture City. Transform your spaces with bespoke furniture from Furniture City. And enjoy mouth-watering discounts of 20% to 50% on our expertly crafted pieces. From offices to homes, gardens to pool-size kitchens, living rooms, and even church auditoriums, Furniture City has the perfect furniture to make your festive season extraordinary. Visit our Spintest branch or call our Spintest branch on 0540 31 4948 or call our Tema outlet 0257 961451. Hurry, don't miss out on this exclusive offer. Furniture City is simply unforgettable. And of course, don't forget, the Hisense does not only sell television, refrigerators, chest freezers, and air conditioners, but they also do laser televisions, gas cookers, washing machines, smartphone, sound system, water dispenser, microwave, blender, rice cooker, kettle, iron, air fryer, just to name a few. One-stop shop when it comes to electronic appliances. As one of the best electronic companies in Ghana, Hisense stands by its products and offers up to 5 years manufacturer defect warranty. With Hisense showrooms across Ghana, visit any of our showrooms around Accra and also in Tama, Kumasi, Takrady, Takwa, Mankese, Obuasi, Sunyani, Techiman, Tamale, Hohwe. Go for you to purchase any Hisense products at the best price on the market. For further inquiries, call Hisense on 0302 550000 or visit our website hisense.com.gh. Also, don't forget to follow Hisense on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Hisense has everyday prices for the everyday person. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Wake up at dawn. You know buff. You know chop. When it vanish for your area for 2 weeks, you not get one drop safe inside your tank.
Hey.
Hajia, our life was in dangerous. Only our neighbor gets water with water tank.
Water tank?
Yes, water tank. Mamma mia, that water tank gets meter for checking water level. That water tank be fine past Kumasi Selendion. That water tank be tough like Ghana Army. That water tank, they carry water pepe, so say some no go left inside the supply tank. What a tank! As my boss, Mr. Poncho, go talk.
Beautiful, durable, with water level indicator and accurate volume of water. Water tank. What a tank. By Duraplast.
Agriculture is essential for any society to feed itself. It plays a vital role in the growth of the economy of any country and its development. This is the platform that brings finality to all critical issues in agriculture and agribusiness in Ghana. On the Ghanaian Farmer Show, we do more than just talk. We resolve problems, hold stakeholders in agricultural sector accountable, and address all the key happenings in the agricultural sector. From funding, market access, infrastructure, policy making, and everything you need to know about agriculture and agribusiness. This show provides the platform that amplifies the voice of the Ghanaian farmer. Make a date with Enyanam Manye this and every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. on Radio Gold 90.5 FM as we explore the full context of agriculture and agribusiness. The Ghanaian Farmer Show. Business still in the land.
Sign Ban Herbal Center. Na juma power ye ewo my Ghana team. Say we be on via. See your boni dear. Yes, at your phone pan aye juma sono. And unti tractor drivers, ni taxi drivers so omo de omo ben no. Ebon e try ya sa Ban Herbal Center edema. Say you no mpem ya de.
Na no madamfo efia menu nya ankwanhia no. Ehọ na ye de no koye. Na ne nkasa mu ebuse pen na okoye no. Ya nkyere na ya ntwe. Wode ahaban na etoso
wo emfidie abrane a wode kire bebia mfomso no wo na wode ahaban eyi sa nkonya no na de anigye ni asombia befie
fonsema mo ya de timpra ni beje yaresa e wo Ban Herbal Center enkran ye wala shebi community 16 road ye be Bows City frɛ wo 0244988004 atamfo ba nyare wanyina ebejuane ba
listeners like about our station? It's everything.
I like everything.
I love Radio Gold 90.5.
On air. Radio Gold 90.5 FM. Online. www.radiogoldlive.com. And on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Radio Gold 905 FM. Follow, like, and share.
We're still discussing the economy. And of course, if you listen to the former president himself, he's clear in his mind what he's taking over and what needs to be done. In fact, I think at one point in time, he even talked about going back to even the restructuring that was done. Going back to renegotiate with those who hold our debts, among others. Even going back to the IMF and renegotiating the program. It's interesting what Prof said, that at this point, we have an IMF program that's not giving us any tangible results that the new government can take over. But does the money help? Because there's some 300 million coming in occasionally.
What will the money be used for, or what has it been used for? Servicing other debts? Earmarked towards investments with tangible returns? That's the question we need to ask. And I'm yet to have an answer to this.
See. So then that's why I'm saying that I don't want to go to what can be done, but what should not be done.
How?
By the person who takes over, not even the person, because it looks like it has to be the entire government working around on the economy.
Well, I keep saying this, but as I said, I trust the judgment and sages of President John Dramani Mahama and the erudite Professor Nana Jino Poku-Agyeman that as the pair, they know what they're about and they know what to do. But as a watcher of the market and what sometimes the international market looks like, or sometimes even the local market, names and personalities matter in a government. So the first set of names that will be dropped as the, in quotes, kitchen cabinet and key sector ministers whatsoever is going to tell whether we can handle the economy right. It's going to tell whether we'll be winning the next elections. It's going to tell whether we'll have a handle on the economy, among other issues. And I trust them to do that. So until that drops, we wouldn't have that signal. But when that happens, that's where the signals begin to. So the market is keenly watching. They're going to give us a certain level of goodwill, again, based on what's going to happen in terms of the teams that will be put in place. And now, it is up to us as to how we can turn that around, that goodwill around, and run with it to get things done.
So don't waste the goodwill.
No. If we waste it, that's it. We're done. Looking at the voter pattern of Ghanaians now, how they vote. But I trust, as I said, I trust that we have a safe pair of hands in President John Dramani Mahama and Professor Nana Jino Poku-Agyeman to deliver as far as this is concerned. I have said, look at the transition team that's been put in place. Very formidable. And if that continues, that goodwill is going to come, and we can consolidate that and turn around. So we may use that to cool the economy before allowing it to turn a corner. Instead of just allowing an overheated economy and saying it is turning a corner. An overheated economy can never turn a corner.
But because there's been also the suggestion, before I come to Ni, and I can pull a few stories that have been published, including with his own words. The current finance minister, Amin Adams, has said on several occasions that the economy has returned to pre-COVID.
Where are the figures? They should show us the figures. It's the figures that will tell. What are interest rates today? How is the CD performing? What was the CD and interest rate under COVID or even before COVID? It's not for him to say. The economy will speak for itself. It's not about what he says. What is the CD performing? So as for this, people will all say what they want to say. But the economy is speaking to us based on interest rates, based on the performance of the CD, based on inflation. And all of this has been static. Excruciatingly static for the last couple of years. You see, and one thing they're failing to realize is that it's even taking this IMF program to get into allowing them to have some breathing space. Imagine this economy without IMF. Where will we be? So they should be sober and even make cognizance of the IMF program each time they're even making their computations and trying to expose what they're doing. It is our economy plus IMF. Minus IMF, where are we?
Maybe plus the fact that we have deferred
payment, yes.
Among others.
So this economy, it's all dressed up. It's all dressed up. And when the clothes start falling, we'll be naked as an economy. We don't want to get there.
I see.
And I hope we don't get there.
Me, when they said shrewd, I was thinking about, but so what shouldn't the incoming administration do?
What they shouldn't do? Well, they shouldn't rely on the traditional solutions we have actually used over the years.
Okay.
They shouldn't.
Yeah, what are those?
Going to the IMF.
We already are the IMF.
Going to the... Well, you can be at the IMF and you can entrench your position of being at the IMF.
Okay.
Or you can choose to actually look the other way.
Okay.
But the issue is, what is the other way? Look, today, our companies or the private sector has no choice but to borrow at a higher rate from our banking sector. Have we thought of alternative capital markets where we could raise money at a very good rate for businesses to free the space? Because who is taking all the space in terms of the capital market? It is government. Can government slow down in terms of the issues with treasury bills? Because very soon that is also going to break. The confidence level in the market is so bad to the extent that the market is not going to trust just anything. They want to see real signals. They will want to see real turnaround. They've been told severally that we've turned the corner. And yet they know where they are. In the deepest of the ocean, they know where they are. So they are not just going to listen to what somebody says, how somebody presents the issues to them. They are going to look at real indicators. And I'm saying that what they shouldn't do is to think they can go the same route and achieve any result. Quickly, they must turn around. And I insist, they must go to the basics. We have to borrow. What is the alternative for borrowing? If we still have to pursue infrastructural development and all that, and clearly we do not have any space in terms of the physical, then clearly we must find an alternative to borrow, where we do not have to think of paying back, where the projects may pay themselves back or should be made to pay back themselves. We have to look for a space for the private sector to borrow and borrow efficiently. Because if you present to me the pharmaceutical industry of this country, their potential in the future, I may put $1 in there. Right? But if that is not being done, and we have restricted the market solely to having get off the stake you have and give out the stake you have in your company before you could raise money, and those stringent procedures you have to go through to raise money, for a company to raise money in the capital market. If we keep to that, then of course we are still going to have issues. We have an opportunity to make Ghana the capital market of West Africa and even the entire Africa. Okay. I think that what this government shouldn't do is to look at where the others looked at in terms of accelerating growth, in terms of putting up infrastructure, in terms of advancing the financial sector costs and all that. I'm saying if we look the other way.
And where's the other way?
The other way is getting things done not through the normal systems of borrowing. Look, when we had the financial sector crisis, what was the first thing we thought of? Let's go and borrow. When in fact, those same good assets we claim we have put together could have been sold out to the people of Ghana and bring back confidence into the banking sector and by large our financial sector. Our financial sector is so deteriorated that if we should have a class or a huge activation of risk in terms of our insurance sector, it will fizzle out, it will go down. We don't have a financial sector as we speak. It is so weak that something drastic must be done. How do you do it? We've borrowed, we have a bond against whatever we claim we were doing. What has been the performance of that bond?
I have to bring this to a close. And thank you very much. And Prof, I was actually listening last time to your assessment of, I think one of the things that this government walked into power with was the claim of we have the men. We were doing an assessment of different Dr. And I found it quite interesting to listen to. Yeah. Well, it looks like this government has to really pull out the men.
Yeah. Do we have to?
Pull out the men.
Well,
yeah.
I
you don't only need to have the men. It looks like they have to pull out.
We don't just need the men. We need a system that can work.
A system that can work.
So I would prefer pulling out a system than pulling out men.
I see.
If you have the right system, you would get the right men to be in place and to grind it.
Okay. Well, we have to leave it there. Doc, one of the things I've always struggled with is putting Professor Nana Jim Pokwa in contest. The woman is very confusing. Because if you have a discussion with her, you know that
you know what she's made of.
She's so simplistic in a manner. It's like sometimes there are very little people see her and people listen to her. People who have never engaged her will draw a certain conclusion when she's speaking within a certain context. Yeah. But when you have that conversation with her, then you have a different understanding of who this woman is and what the capacity is for, of course, a high-achieving academic among others. When you look at that, what word comes to mind?
You know why you're struggling? Yeah. Right? What I did on your sister station the other day, you talk about, it's because this country, a lot of people package. So we go after smoke and mirrors, whistles and bells. When people know their stuff, they don't flaunt it. You have to discover them.
Okay.
And Prof needs to be discovered. She has been discovered, and having been discovered, she needs to be experienced.
His name is Dr. MAHMUD Sharif KHALID. He's an associate professor of finance and accounting. In fact, I was reading about you and realized that you have your interest is actually mostly in corporate governance.
Yes.
Even though you lecture accounting
and finance. I publish in the corporate governance space.
Okay. A lot more. Yeah. Okay.
And I teach it as well, actually, and train boards at that level.
Are you going back to the academy now that is?
Well, I mean, everything is up in there. Yeah. I have delivered what I have to come and do. I've helped.
Certainly not at this point.
YARBOI ANNAN is a financial analyst. Like I say, he does a lot within the Ghanaian economy. One of the people you speak to when you want to find out where the Ghanaian economy is leaning towards because of the many interests you have. Not one thing. The two of them are both from the NDC. Don't make it. That's why I didn't introduce them as that. I introduced them based on their expectations. And I listening to the two of you, I understand exactly what will happen behind closed doors when you meet on the matters of the economy. But thank you very much for making time to join us.
Sure. It's a pleasure.
There's a lot to deal with when it comes to the economy for the National Democratic Congress. The elections are over. Now it's time to govern. The president-elect will take over from January 7th. What we've been doing is to try to paint you a picture of what is being left behind. Make no mistake, it's a very important conversation to have at this time. What is being left behind? Coming up next is the king of mid-morning himself, Ochami Bajimba, with the Mid-Morning Show.
One station. Accra 2022, 23, 24 and more. We don't chat about drama. Back live. Commercial free. Mid-morning show.
Oh, we love Ochami Bajimba.